Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as I give you a quick update on my lavender seedlings. So let's go. I made a few videos recently showing you how I start lavender from seed. What I'll do is I'll add some links down in the description below with videos I made showing you my process for cold stratifying the seeds and then the next steps after taking the seeds out and then putting them in these pots that you see below me here. I live in New Hampshire, Zone 5B, so I had done a little bit of research in terms of what kind of lavender I wanted to grow and make sure that the lavender I was growing was hardy in this area. So the lavender I chose, plus it was easy to get the seeds locally, were a variety that's an English lavender, and they're called Munstead lavender. They're very pretty, so I thought I would just start with those for this year. If you were to go to a store and buy a lavender plant, I'm sure the price varies, but they can get very expensive. And if you only want one plant, by all means, buying the one plant makes sense. But what I wanted to do is I want to make a hedge with my lavender. And I knew it would be very expensive to do it that way, which is why I chose to start lavender from seed this year. Now, I tried growing lavender from seed a few times in the past. And those times that I tried it, I might have had a few seeds germinate. I didn't have a lot of success. Therefore, I definitely didn't have enough lavender to create a hedge with. So this year, I spent a lot of time doing my research on what it takes to get a bunch of seeds to germinate, which is why I made those previous videos. But I thought for today it would be good just to show you close up how the lavender is looking and also to kind of tell you what I'm thinking in terms of the placement for these lavender plants. There are a couple of things that are important to know if you want to have lavender in your landscape. The first thing being that they thrive in full sun. Now, I have full sun in a few areas of my yard, but not a lot of it. So that's where I'm planning to plant my lavender. One place is out in my south garden. I have what I call the side walkway bed. And there are a bunch of plants in there. And towards the front of the border of that bed, there's some really pretty dianthus that blooms in the springtime. There are white colored dianthus as well as a hot pink colored dianthus. And what I'm thinking for in terms of the lavender is to make a hedge right behind where the dianthus is. I think that would look really pretty. It would add a little bit of height. And I believe that lavender should bloom about the same time that the dianthus is blooming, which I think would look so nice. And one other place that I'm thinking about planting the lavender, because I think I should have enough, is on my west side of my house. I have a bunch of daylilies, and what I was thinking is putting the lavender just behind where the daylilies are. Although I need to check the height. So they're either going to go behind the daylilies or in front of the daylilies. But nevertheless, I'd like them to be near the daylilies because the daylilies bloom in the middle of summer. They're a nice yellow color. And the lavender should bloom in the springtime. And if I treat it correctly and cut it back, I believe it should do another flush of blooms for me. So I'd love to have it on the west side of my house where there is full sun. And I have a nice hedge of Stelladoro daylilies. I think this would complement those daylilies very nicely. So just to do a quick recap of what I had done in terms of starting my lavender seeds. I had started them in these Ziploc bags. They're just small sandwich Ziploc bags. And I took a paper towel, I folded it in half. I put the paper towel inside the Ziploc bag. And then I sprayed the paper towel lightly with water. It's just a small hand pump sprayer that I have. And then I took the seeds, I sprinkled them inside this bag here. The most important thing though is to make sure that there's enough water in here, but not too much water. If you have too much water, you're going to rot your seeds. And if you don't have enough water, then the seeds are not going to germinate either. So I just made sure I put the right amount of water in there. And if there was too much water in here, I just basically dripped out that excess amount of water. After that, I sealed the bag and I put these bags in my refrigerator. And I put them down in the crisper drawer. I figured it's the coolest down there. And what's nice is I was able to just lay the bags on top of each other. I have 3 bags here. I labeled them. I put the name of the lavender, the date that I sowed the seeds, which was February 3rd, and then I put on here the date that I want to take the seeds out of the fridge, which was 2 weeks after putting them in the fridge. So February 17th is when I had planned to remove the seeds from the fridge. So when February 17th came, I removed all of these bags and I put them under grow lights that I have. And I also put them on top of a heat mat. Now, whether or not that's all required, I'm not sure, but I just wanted to share what worked for me. And the seed started germinating. The biggest thing I wanted to share in this video was that it's not like all the seeds just all germinated at the same time. Some germinated very quickly, and I wish I'd written it down. I don't recall how quickly, but it might have been like a week after some seeds started germinating. So what I did then at that point was I removed each seed as they were germinating from this bag, and I started to pot them up into, I had small little 6 cell packs, and I potted them up into there. But what I've continued to do, even though it's been almost a month and a half, I continue to keep these bags. The paper towels don't look great because you can imagine time has gone by. But nevertheless, I continue to keep these bags and I spritz them with a little bit of water if they need the water. And I'm still keeping these on heat mats under my LED shop lights. And I'm noticing that seeds are still germinating. Mr. Budget Gardener said, just give it up, throw these away. I mean, I have plenty of lavender here, but it's so hard to throw away lavender seeds that are germinating or that might germinate. So for right now, I'm holding on to these. And then as I see them germinating, I continue to just prick them out of here, out of the bag, and I just put them at this point in these little 2-inch pots. So you'll see that I had then, I originally had them in 6 cell packs. Then I started pricking them out and I took all my lavender and now it's in these small little 2-inch pots. Lavender grows very slowly and I definitely don't want them to be in a very big pot. I want them to be in appropriately sized pots for how small these plants are. And so that's why I chose small little 2-inch pots. When it comes to planting the lavender outside, I'm not in a huge rush, but then again, I do want the roots to establish themselves out in my landscape. Because we have very harsh winters, I absolutely need the lavender to establish itself out in my yard so that come winter time, they can survive our harsh winters. So what I'm thinking of doing is sometime in the late spring to early summer, my goal is to get these lavenders planted outdoors. Now, some of the lavender, the size of them are nice and big already. Some of them are really small, and the really small ones are probably the ones I've recently pricked out of these Ziploc bags. So I'll have to wait and see, what I end up doing, but I'm imagining not all of this lavender is going to get planted out right away out in my landscape. It might be that the smallest lavender might have to just get potted up and I might just keep them indoors for the winter. I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you, but I don't want to put very, very small lavender out in my landscape. So while I was doing my research on where I want to place the lavender, I knew, okay, they need full sun. Other things that I had read about was that lavender does not like clay-like soil. And the places where I'm going to put the lavender, I wouldn't say that the soil is clay-like, but if you did have clay-like soil and you wanted to plant lavender there, you will have to amend the soil, and usually compost is a good option for that. And since lavender is a Mediterranean plant, it likes it not only hot, but it likes it dry. So wherever you place it, you want to make sure that you're not loving it too much by giving it too much water. However, the first year that I plant the lavender, I will make sure that it's getting a fair amount of water just so it establishes itself. But after that first year, I will pull back the throttle and I will make sure I'm not giving them too much water because I want them to do well where they're going to be. I've only had lavender, as far as I can remember, once in my yard. And I really didn't know all the rules about how to cut back or trim back the lavender. It became very woody, and over time it just looked so bad, I just pulled it out. So I will make sure I do my research as I get these planted in terms of when is the right time to trim them back and all those rules associated with how far to cut them back, but not cut them back too far, otherwise you kill the plant. But I want to make sure that I'm very good about keeping up with the maintenance and cutting back of my lavender, just to make sure that they look good and they can survive in my yard as long as possible. And in case you're wondering, in this 10 by 20 tray, I have these small little 2-inch pots, and each tray can hold 50 plants. So I have 100 lavender, which is so exciting. And actually I have more than 100 because in some of these pots, I doubled up the plants. If they were the little teeny tiny plants that I'm still pricking out of the bags, I'm just putting them in the corner of one of these pots because the seedlings are just so tiny that I'm okay with just putting them in with a bigger plant. So that's what I'm doing, right now, just to keep the seedlings moved out of these bags and into a new home. So what I'm going to do right now is take you in for a closer look. I'm just going to show you some of the seeds that are germinating in these bags here. And together we'll prick out some of those seeds and we'll just plant them in the pots here, just so you can see my process of what I've been doing. All right, the bags don't look great. I don't know if it's mold or what, but it does happen over time. The seedlings don't seem to mind, therefore I don't mind. You can see right there, there's one seed that sprouted, and there's another. And honestly, it is so hard to keep up with this process. I'm doing my best to try to get them when they're about this size, but sometimes they get a little bit bigger, and that's fine. So let's go ahead and take those out of the bag. And there's one little seedling. And literally all I've been doing is just making a small hole like in one of the corners here and putting these little tiny seedlings into the hole. You just want to make sure you're getting the root in under the soil. Press around it just to firm the seedling in. And that's pretty much it. You can see that it's very small compared to this plant here. That's why I'm okay with having them share the space together. And here's one that I had put in this corner a while ago. And there's another one right there. Let's get that. And you can see, like, compared to my hand, just how small that little tiny seedling is. Again, I'm just going to make the smallest little hole. And with one that's like that, where it just barely has a little tail, the key is just carefully push it in there. And it should righten itself right back up. And there it is right there. And if you have to, just gently push it in. You want to make sure that it has good contact with the soil. There are still a ton of seeds in here. And I just play the waiting game. I just check them every so often. And if this bag needs a little bit of water, I add water. But otherwise, if no more seeds were to germinate, I am fine with that. I have a hard time throwing this bag away. Again, it's been some time that all these seeds have been in here. So the bags don't look great, or what's inside of them doesn't look great. But the little seedlings don't seem to mind once they sprout. There's one right there. Let's go after that next. A lot of times I like to use a pen just to at least move the little seedling. And sometimes, if you're lucky, the seedling will attach to the pen or stick to the pen, but not this time. Sometimes when you reach in there, you grab a couple of seeds. Well, I just take these and put them back in the bag. It's amazing. They are so tiny, these little tiny sprouts. When they're that small, honestly, I just put them in the hole, and if it's going to survive, it's going to survive. The ones that have a little bit more leaves coming are a little bit easier, but make sure you tuck that guy in. I really hope you enjoyed this update on how my lavender seedlings are looking like, what I'm planning to do with them, and then also the fact that I'm still pricking out the little seeds that are sprouting and what I'm doing with those. And I know I didn't mention about watering, but at this point I am still bottom watering these, and all of these are getting fertilizer. So even the little seedlings that are in here that don't have the first set of what are called the true leaves, I'm okay with that because everything is mixed in here. So everything is receiving a very diluted amount of liquid fertilizer. I like to use Miracle Grow, but you can use whatever fertilizer you like. And I just watered these today, which is why they look pretty wet. So now I'm going to let them dry out before I water them again. I really enjoyed reading all of your comments on my videos, and thank you for that. And what I really like watching is that sometimes someone asks a question and another person answers it. I just think that's great. I think that one of the best things about YouTube and these videos is it gives us an opportunity to bounce questions off of each other. Not only you asking me questions or me asking you questions, but also just each of you chatting with each other. I think it's a wonderful forum for that, and I highly encourage it on my channel. So please, if you have any questions or comments about lavender or your experience with starting lavender from seed, please drop it in the comments below. Maybe your process has been different from my process and you were very successful with starting lavender just from seeds. I think it's great to share that because a lot of people do read the comments and we all can learn from each other. I'll be sure to give you updates on the process with my lavender and when it comes time to planting them outside in my landscape. Until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.